My daughter came into my room with her cell phone in her hand, her eyes puffy and tears sliding down her cheeks. She was holding it as if it had just betrayed her. My wife and I looked at her, waiting for an explanation, but all that came out of her mouth were choppy sobs and a voice broken by disappointment. I thought it was going to be good news. That sentence made me frown. My 12-year-old daughter had spent the afternoon excitedly writing an email to the head teacher at her school. It was clearly not just any email. It was a well-written and respectful request to be her art teacher's assistant during summer school. Her teacher had even reviewed it and given it the go-ahead before sending it. So when my daughter read the message to us, my wife and I felt proud of her maturity. But now she was here, lips trembling and eyes filled with panic. I took the cell phone from her hands, and my wife came over to read it with me. The principal's response was a little gem of shit. I cannot consider your request. The tone of your email was completely inappropriate, as if you were addressing a friend and not a superior. It is disrespectful and presumptuous of you to write to me in that manner. If you really want to show interest, you should send another email offering me an apology. I felt my blood boil. My wife covered her mouth with her hand, as if that would contain the cry of indignation that threatened to escape. What the hell is this? My daughter, who was still crying, took a step back, as if expecting me to lose my temper. I took a deep breath. I couldn't explode. Come here, I said, pointing to the bed. She sat down slowly and lowered her head. My wife, on the other hand, continued to read the email in disbelief. What the hell is so disrespectful about your email? She asked. My daughter shrugged, wiping her face with her sleeves. The teacher told me it was okay. I just wanted to help. And that was what pissed me off the most. That a 12-year-old girl had the initiative to do something positive, and that the principal, instead of recognizing it, humiliated her. My wife and I looked at each other. We were furious, but we also knew we had to act with a cool head. No sending an email insulting her or going to the school to smash the old woman's face in. We had to be smart. The next day, while I was at work, my wife decided to go to the school to talk directly to the principal. She called me as soon as she left, and from her tone, I knew things had gotten out of hand. She kicked me out of the school, she said, her voice trembling with anger. What? I went in calmly, I swear. I just wanted to ask her why on earth she responded that way. But as soon as I mentioned the email, she got defensive. She said that my daughter had been unprofessional and that she was teaching her a lesson about respect, as if she were the bloody queen of England or something. I took a deep breath, trying not to lose my temper. And then what happened? When I told her that our daughter's mail had been checked by her teacher and that there was nothing disrespectful in it, she got worse. She started to raise her voice as if I were threatening her. And yes, I admit that in the end I raised my voice too, but only because she did it first. And then she was silent for a moment, and I knew the worst was coming. Then she called security to have me removed from the building. I felt a blow to the stomach. I was silent for a few seconds, processing. She can't be serious. Listen to this. Not only that, but afterwards she sent me an email saying that she was documenting the incident and would send it to the school's lawyer. No way. You heard me. She said I barged into her office, yelled at her, and clapped in her face, like I was some crazy lunatic. I ran a hand over my face, feeling the anger boiling up inside me. We have to respond to this with a cool head. And how the hell do we do that? We're in a charter school. This chick is the principal and the superintendent. There's no board of education to complain to. He was right. We were stuck in a shitty situation with not many options. But one thing was for sure. We weren't going to keep quiet. I was silent for a few seconds before speaking. We're going to find a way to expose this bitch. The silence in the house weighed like a damn block of cement. My wife paced the living room with her arms crossed, her jaw tense, her steps short and quick, as if wandering could solve the mess that damn principal had gotten us into. My daughter had been in her room all day, not wanting to talk to anyone. And I, sitting at the table, trying not to tear my hair out, with the director's email open on my phone, reading over and over again the string of lies she had sent us. The old woman wanted to paint us as aggressive madmen, as problematic parents. My wife, who barely raised her voice when we argued about what to have for dinner, was now suddenly a bloody hooligan who had stormed into her office shouting. And all because of a polite email that our daughter sent with the best of intentions. My leg was trembling with frustration. I couldn't stand by and do nothing while that woman got her way, while my daughter locked herself in her room, feeling like rubbish for trying to do something good. "I'm going to the school tomorrow," I said suddenly. My wife stopped short, turned her head towards me with a frown. "What for?" "So that old woman can see my face when I tell her we're not going to keep quiet. You can't go there and make a scene. She's seen how she reacts if you say something she doesn't like." "I'm not going to make a scene. I'm going to make it clear that we're not going to swallow her bullshit, and that if she carries on with her little game, we're going to go over her head." My wife pressed her lips together. She knew I was right. She knew this couldn't be left like that. But she also knew that we had waded into some pretty fucking murky waters. The next day, I showed up at the school, walking through the doors with the determination of a bull that has just seen red. I was met with the cautious glances of the administrators. I was sure she had already told them her side of the story. I didn't care. I asked to speak to her, and they said she wasn't available. Is she not available, or does she not want to talk to me? The receptionist, a woman with thick glasses and a tense expression, looked over her glasses at me. "The headmistress is in a meeting." "Great. I'll wait." I sat down on one of the hard plastic chairs and crossed my arms. An hour passed, then another. During that time, I saw teachers, students, and parents come and go. I caught the fleeting gaze of my daughter's art teacher, the one who had approved the email. When she saw me, she stopped for a second, then walked on, her shoulders a little tighter than usual. Finally, the receptionist cleared her throat. "The director says she can see you for 5 minutes." I stood up with an energy that I had no right to have in my body after waiting for 2.5 hours. When I entered her office, she was sitting with one of those professional smiles that make you want to tear it off her face. "Good morning," she said, leaning forward slightly, as if I hadn't stabbed her in the back the night before. I sat down without smiling. "I want you to explain your email to me. It's all there in the document I sent to your wife and the school's lawyer." "Lies. All lies." My wife didn't shout at you or applaud you in the face. The smile didn't move, but his eyes sharpened a little. "I'm sorry you see it that way. But at this school we take discipline and respect very seriously." "Uh-huh. So much so that instead of encouraging students to take initiative, you humiliate them." For the first time, I saw a slight blush rise to his cheeks. He leaned back in his chair. "Sir, I don't think this conversation is productive." "Oh, don't worry. This isn't a conversation. It's a warning." His eyebrows went up, but not in surprise. Rather, he seemed amused, as if he thought there was nothing I could do. "Warning. I have all the evidence. My daughter's original email, witnesses who know that my wife didn't do what you're saying. And if you insist on continuing to screw us over, I'm going to go public with all of this. The school community, the local media, whatever it takes. Because unlike you, I know how to make people listen." There was a brief silence. Then she leaned forward with a strained smile. "If you decide to go down that road, I warn you that the school will also take the necessary measures." I suppressed a bitter laugh. "Oh, I want to see that." I got up and left her office without waiting for an answer. The problem with fighting someone who has power is not only that they can trample you, but that they do it with a smile. They don't punch you in the face, they don't shout at you. No, they stab you in the back with a polite email, with a meeting that seems friendly, with a formal complaint addressed to whoever has the authority to fuck up your life without breaking a sweat. And this shitty principal played that game like an expert. The first blow came 2 days after my visit. An email addressed to my wife and me, copied to the school's lawyer, and, surprise, surprise, to the disciplinary committee. "We are concerned about the aggressive and confrontational behavior you have demonstrated in your interactions with this institution. To ensure the safety and well-being of our students and staff, we inform you that any further inappropriate behavior will result in additional restrictions on your access to the school." I laughed my ass off. Seriously, I let out a bitter laugh that even scared the dog. My wife, on the other hand, wasn't laughing. She was sitting with a stiff back, her hands clenched on the table. "They're labeling us as problem parents," she whispered, as if saying it out loud would make it more real. "No," I said, still with a crooked smile on my face. They're preparing to take us out of the fucking game, so that we're the problem and not the headmistress who destroys the children with her emails at 10 at night. My daughter entered the kitchen at that moment, her head bowed, as if she already knew something was wrong. "Is something going to happen?" she asked in a low voice. My wife looked at her with the love of a mother who wants to protect and the frustration of a woman who doesn't know how to do it this time. "No, my love," she said, smiling at her, as if she could pretend that everything was fine. I couldn't pretend. I didn't want to. "We're not going to let them treat you like trash," I said, looking her in the eye. "But we may have to fight for that." She nodded, without saying anything else. And so the war began in earnest. The next step was to expose the director, not in a formal complaint, because those people roll up the paper and wipe their asses with it, but in the only arena where bastards like that can't control the narrative, public opinion. First, my wife spoke to my daughter's art teacher. She asked her, in the calmest voice she could muster, to confirm that she had approved the email. The poor woman looked tense, as if she had been warned not to get involved. But in the end, she admitted the obvious. "Yes, I checked it. There was nothing disrespectful about it." That same day, I wrote a summary of the story and posted it on social media, with screenshots of my daughter's original email, with the principal's message insulting her, without insulting myself, without exaggerating, just letting the facts speak for themselves. The shit hit the fan in a matter of hours. Parents commenting, people sharing it, even former students of the school telling stories about the principal and her method of discipline. And then, the final blow, a local journalist wrote to me. "I'm interested in learning more about your case. Can we talk?" That's when I knew the principal was no longer in control. When I saw her again, her jaw was so tightly clenched I thought she was going to break her teeth. "I didn't expect you to resort to such public tactics," she said, her voice carefully measured. "Did you expect me to stay silent while you ruin my daughter's self-esteem?" Social media is not the right place to discuss school matters. Yes, well, shitty emails at midnight aren't either, but that didn't stop you from sending one. There was a charged silence. He knew he couldn't threaten me directly, not after the attention this was getting. So he did what his kind did best, play the institutional concern card. "I understand that you are upset," he said. "But these actions do not benefit your daughter. She is still a student here. And as her father, I invite you to consider what is best for her." I leaned over his desk, never taking my eyes off him. Best for her? Best for her is not to grow up thinking she has to kiss the boots of someone like you to be allowed to do something good. This time I did see something break in his expression, a slight tremor on his lips, the way his fingers tightened on his pen. We won, not in a legal sense, because the school was still his private fiefdom, but in the only sense that really mattered. He could no longer hide. The journalist published his article, the story continued to spread, and in the end, the school board, which until then had played dead, intervened. Not with a dismissal, because the system never really punishes people like her, but with stricter supervision, with a public warning about the importance of respectful communication with students and their families. My daughter never asked to be an art assistant again. She became disillusioned with school, with authority. But she also learned that she doesn't have to accept bullshit just because someone in a position of power says they have the right to give it to her. Life has that damn way of leaving you with scars you can't see. Weeks passed, months passed. The story stopped being news, people forgot, as always happens. But the resentment stuck to our skin like the fucking smell of cigarettes on a smoker's clothes. My daughter no longer mentioned school with enthusiasm. My wife still had tense shoulders every time she passed by the building, and I carried the damn feeling that although we had won something, we had also lost something more important. The innocence of believing that people in positions of power were going to do the right thing. But if the director thought that everything was going to be forgotten, she was wrong. Because there's something I learned in this fight. Sometimes revenge isn't an explosion. Sometimes it's a slow burn, burning little by little until the bastard who fucked you feels the heat. And I made sure she felt it. It all started with something simple. Information. I knew the old woman was no saint. Nobody who thinks they own a fiefdom is. So I started digging. Not illegally. No hacking or movie bullshit. Just conversations with former students, parents, school employees who no longer work there. A piece of information here, another there. It turns out that the principal had a long history of shady dealings. Inflated budgets, favoritism, excessive punishments for students she didn't like. But the juiciest part was this. She manipulated discipline reports to justify expulsions. That was my silver bullet. I made sure the information got to the right person, a member of the school board who already had it in for her, but who had never had enough to stick his foot in it. Until now. They didn't fire her because we know how this shit works. But they put pressure on her. They put her under such a fucking microscope that she couldn't do what she wanted anymore without someone checking every fucking move she made. And after a while, she resigned. They didn't disgrace her. They didn't parade her. They just announced her departure with a nice little official memo thanking her for her years of service. But I knew the truth. And so did she. The day she left, I took my daughter out for ice cream. Not to celebrate her defeat, but to close a chapter. "Did you do something to make her leave?" she asked, looking at me with those eyes that now saw the world with less naivety. I put a spoonful of ice cream in my mouth, letting the cold clear away the taste of bile. Sometimes bad people fall because of their own weight. He didn't quite swallow it, but he didn't push either. He just nodded and continued eating. And I knew that, although this battle was over, the lesson would stay with us forever. The world is a fucked up place. But if you learn to fight, at least you can choose not to let yourself be crushed.